Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. In this episode, we're going to have a local legend, Mr. Darrell Dickens. If you don't know who that is, he is a absolute killer. He killed some really nice deer this season, so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to kind of see like how he got to where he's at now with killing mature bucks. But before we get into that, we got to do all the partners. As you guys know, every time I'm going to run through this really quickly. So Working Class Bow Hunter got a bunch of new merch, awesome stuff, awesome dudes. Check out their podcast. And we have a code for y'all. It's SEBH15, and that saves you 15% on all the merch on workingclassbowhunter.com. So definitely go check them out. Next up is going to be Boutique. If you don't know who Michael Stonebreaker is, he is the owner of the Boutique LLC, which makes in my opinion, the best arrow wraps on the market. So go to theboutiquellc.com and look at all the wraps he's got. You can also do custom orders. And when you do any of that, whether it's custom or something he offers on the website, use the code SEBHP and that will get you free shipping. Next up will be Osseo. Osseo is my camo brand of choice. In my opinion, it's the best one that's out there. Completely different camo pattern than the things that we're all used to. And I've been a huge fan of Osseo since I started hunting and become good friends with Joe. Been working with them now for almost 2 years. So that's a huge thing. So go to osseogear.com, use the code SEBH, and that saves you 15% site-wide. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. My climber has been working great, planning on switching over to a hang-on at some point and getting out there and kind of diversifying a little bit. But my climber has been amazing this season. Season's coming to a close, so it's going to be put away for a little while. But the Dual Threat Pro SD is definitely the best climber I've ever used. I think you guys would agree with me if you have one. So go to summitstands.com to get all your tree stand needs and accessories, safety harnesses, all of that, and use the code SEBH15 to save 15%. Scout Tech. Scout Tech is my camera brand of choice. I've been using them now for almost a year and a half, I think, and they've been working amazingly. The picture quality is great. Ryan and the whole family, they're just awesome people. So go to scouttech.com and keep an eye out for new products coming. There's a new camera coming and more app updates. But definitely go to scouttech.com and get some cameras from them. You will not be disappointed. Ace Hardware and Social Circle is the local bow shop. I always struggle saying that. Local bow shop that I've been working with for, honestly, I've been going there for years, but we just started working together about, I don't know, mid-year this year. So 6 months, let's say. And they are awesome dudes. They do great work. They can tune your bow. They sell all the products that you need. They've got all the new bows for this year. That's Hoyt's, Prime, Hoyt's, Prime, Matthews, PSE, Bowtech, Darton, Elite, all that stuff. So go check them out. They are in Social Circle. Definitely go help support them. Bergie Bowsmith, he was on last week. I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. Bergie is a wizard when it comes to bow tuning. If you have not listened to that episode, I highly recommend you do. We talk about all the new bows, technology, all that stuff. Make sure you send your bow to him if you want extremely in-depth tuning. And he also is now a partner and dealer for a lot of the brands that we use. So use the code SEBH10 to save 10% on getting your bow tuned and also the products that he offers. VPA is an American-made broadhead company. It is nothing but fixed blades. If you're a fixed blade guy, seriously go to try out VPA. I've used them for about a year now. Awesome results. Very, very high quality product. And, I really have nothing bad to say about them. Amazing people behind the product, amazing people behind the brand, and really good people to work with. So I highly recommend you go support them. If you want to check out some of the new stuff that they've got going on, they've got the Omega with bleeders, and there's also some new broadheads coming down the pipeline I can't talk about yet. I actually need to reach out to them and see what exactly is coming. It's been a minute since I've actually said anything like, hey, what's new? So I'll have some of that coming for you guys soon, but go to vparchery.com and use the code SEBH10 to save 10%. Dialed Archery. I'm shooting the Arxos. That is by far the best site that I've ever used. They just came out with a new bow site called The Proof. I know there's a lot more stuff coming through in the next few months to probably a year. I'm going to get Scott back on here to talk about everything and kind of go in depth on The Proof and what the idea behind the design was. And so look out for that, but definitely go to dialedarchery.com and check out everything that they have. and go help support those guys because they are making waves in the industry. Camo dust. Camo dust is my thing that I use to hide myself from the deer. I have used it against other scent control products, and I haven't seen anything that works just as good. So I trust Camo Dust in the woods. I think you should too. So go to camodust.com, get the 6-pack. Trust me, you'll thank me later when you don't need to buy anymore for the rest of the season. But it is an amazing product. Chris is an awesome dude. So I really am thankful to be, helping promote those guys. Last but not least, it's going to be Full Force Hunting Products, which is a company out of Michigan. My buddy Dan Schultz is the owner, and he runs Full Force. He sells scent products, scent ropes. The stuff that I've really used is the minerals and the attractants. Had really good results from that. And as you know, deer season winding down a little bit here soon. We're going to have to start throwing mineral and protein back out for us in Georgia to help grow those bucks. I recommend you give him a shot. So that's all the partners. It's been a wild couple of days. We did the holiday, and then we did my wife's grandfather's funeral, which was a little bit rough. But we're doing fine. Everyone's doing good. We're moving on, pushing through. I know he's with Jesus now, so I can't really be too upset about it. It just sucks that he's gone, and we're definitely gonna miss him. And if you guys don't know who Jesus is, he has been extremely prevalent in our lives lately. Things have been really rough, not gonna lie. And with him there, I've been seeing things. It sounds crazy, but I've been seeing him, basically his fingerprints, everywhere I look, and it's just comforting to know that he's there. You can talk to him anytime you want. If you got something that's bothering you, or just whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. He has always got your back. And I really think that those of you who listen to this had some people say, "Hey, man, really appreciate you saying that stuff about your faith. Keep going." I'm going to be honest. I'm not doing it for any sort of recognition. It's just what I'm called to do, just to try and spread the word and bring as many people to Jesus as I can. So I'm always going to be open about my faith. So if you have not, I guess, considered, giving Jesus a shot, giving your life over to him, I highly recommend you do. Okay. Even through the tough times, you can find a reason to be happy, and you know there's hope that he will get you out of whatever tough situation you're in. So that's my sermon. That's my preaching. I know Darrell's waiting on us, so I really want to get into this episode. I've been interested in getting Darrell on for a while. We've been friends for over a year now, and it's just been scheduling issue after scheduling issue. So without further ado, if I can talk, let's get Mr. Darrell Dickens on the podcast. For all you Georgians, for all you, I guess you could say, middle of the state Georgians who live around the area that I'm in, Covington, you know this guy. You've probably talked to him. You've seen him razz people up on Facebook. You've seen him kill some giant deer consistently. We have a legend, in my opinion, on the podcast today, Mr. Darrell Dickens, the big buck slayer himself. And we're gonna dive into everything that I guess led up to you being able to do this. So Darrell, why don't you tell the people who don't know you who you are and how you got into hunting?
Well, I started hunting with my dad when I was around 11 years old. I would go with him before that, but nothing real regular, just, off and on, but really getting started when I was about 11 years old. And that was the first season. I just sat in the stand, wasn't shooting anything. And then 12 years old, I got me a single shot 20 gauge, started with that, took my hunter safety course. Didn't kill anything the first year. Second year, we actually started out in Greene County. Second year, we were hunting in Taliaferro County. Killed a doe that year, and that kind of that was the start of the obsession. Ever since then, started out with climbers. I was 12-year-old up using climbers, worn and sweat climbers. This was back in '92. So that's how I got started out. And then we were lucky enough to get some property when I was in high school that was just up the street from our house. And that's where I hunted in Loganville for 4 years. Didn't ever kill anything big back then. You look back, you're like, God, I made some stupid mistakes. There was big deer on the property. There was no trail cameras or anything like that. Mm-hmm. There was some guys that were killing some nice deer every year out there. And it was like, man, I really screwed up a lot of things over the years. But you live and you learn, and you grow, and you become a better hunter because of it. And that's pretty much how I got going with. I would take my girlfriends out hunting. I was going hunting. We were going hunting. It didn't matter. If
Yeah.
you wanted to be with me, you were going to go with me. But yeah,
God, I wish I could get my wife to do that. Dude, so it's funny, man. I make jokes about her on here all the time, and I bet some people listening are like, "Oh, he hates his wife." Not at all, But like, I took her hunting once, my first year going, because I've only been doing this now 6 years.
mm-hmm.
My first year, when it was like a week or two after my first sit, so I'm thinking, yeah, man, I shot an 8 point, first sit. I'm Billy Badass. I'm the baddest thing in the woods. We're going where there's 140s, baby. I didn't even know 140 men at the time. Like I barely knew what I was talking about, even with antler size, right? And we went to my buddy, Josh Criswell.
Yeah.
We went to one of his spots where he had a ground blind, the same spot that I killed my first year. And we go in there. Now, mind you, I'd only been to the spot one time. Okay. I did not know where I was going, but because I was trying to be the cool guy, and I think, it was 2019. So me and Jessica were married for 2 months at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I took her out with me and got lost, couldn't find the blind, had my gun with me. She was just going to go with me. And it was November, like the day after Thanksgiving. So it's cold, we're tired because we were up late the night before. we get in the ground. I finally find it. We get in there right before daylight, and I think we sat 2 hours, and she was like, "I'm done." And ever since then, I've never been able to get her back out. So the fact you were able to get any girlfriends out there is a testament to
my wife. She used to go with me before we had kids. When I used to hunt in Washington and Johnson and Lawrence County out that way, and I had a camper. I'd stayed out every weekend. I was there, But before we had started having kids, I'm like, I can't be doing this. It's not fair to her.
Yeah.
Even every Friday through Sunday, and so I started finding stuff out this way where I could just do day trips. And she didn't ever go with me again. Once she doesn't like it at all, but she went with me before we had kids and everything, just so we could spend time together. But now,
well, and that's the thing is like Jessica, she doesn't hate that I do it. I mean, she loves deer meat, but she hates the time that I'm gone, and I explain it to her. I'm like, look, I'm only gone a few hours a week, like 3 hours a week, maybe. And it took, I mean, seriously, 6 years for us to finally find a happy medium where she goes to the gym now, I go hunt. So any night, and it's usually nights that Tiff stays at her grandma's place. So I'm like, dude, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Especially late season, I'm home, I don't know, 6:30. Like I can have dinner done and it works out. But you look, man, I'm not going to do this whole podcast and be like, to not be vulgar, kissing your ass. Right. But I do got to give you credit because you, in my opinion, are like the super hunter and the super dad, right? Because you kill these big deer. And yet every time we've talked and every time we tried to do this, it was always, oh, I've got practice. And you've laid out your schedule for me. And I'm like, how in the hell are you even able to sleep, much less go hunt? Like you have probably the most busy life of anybody that I know. And yet you still do it. I mean, how did you get to that? Is it just years of experience or is it, I mean, what is it?
I do a lot of leg work in the summertime.
Got it.
I've got I've got like almost 4,000 acres I can hunt on private land.
Yeah.
So I think of it as like, I get all my trail cameras. I got a ton of trail cameras. I'm fishing. I'm putting them out here for a week. When you start hunting a place, you hunted for a couple of years, you kind of, all right, this area is known. This area I usually have at least a decent buck in, or sometimes this is every other year. But when you get those new tracks, like the bucks I killed, or the 2 bucks I killed this year were on brand new tracks I'd never hunted before.
Really?
Yeah. So, during the summer, I just put in the legwork, checking cameras, moving cameras, putting out feed, and found the deer. But yeah, that's, up until muzzleloader is my favorite. That's my favorite week to hunt. And that's usually when the kids also have off. And that's usually when they go on a little trip with their mama, So I have that like 4 or 5 days where there is no practices, there's no games, there's no
You're
getting
free.
so I'm free,
Yeah.
and that's when I killed that 6-pointer. I did have to play hook. I helped coach my youngest son's football team,
Mhm.
and I did play hooky on that when I killed that 11-pointer. I played hooky that one practice, because he was just too consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to, I've missed like 3 practices in 2 years, so it's not like I do it all the time. But yeah, sometimes you're sitting at practice and you look at your phone, you're like, dang it, But
Mhm.
I only get a certain amount of time with these kids playing sports, and I'm not going to miss it. It's just one of
Yeah.
the things that's a big priority. It's important to us, the kids in sports, and they do it all year. I mean, we do it all year long,
Oh, I know.
playing sports.
Trust me. It took us a year to get you on here. Believe me, I know. It's crazy, man. So you and I mean, you've really helped me along in this whole hunting thing, right? Um, I've probably blown your phone up a million times in the group chat for sure. And then outside of the group chat, just like, hey, look at these deer. What do you think? What do I do? Right.
Yeah.
And I I want to know from you because you have so little time and yet you still are able to, I guess, get it done. Like, what would you say is, I guess, the secret? Because the one thing me and Thor and Brock, actually, the three of us have been discussing this for since deer season started, is we have all these deer on camera, but we can't seem to get them consistently.
Yeah.
I saw a trike that one time, made a mistake. That was all on me. A month ago, I had that 10-point show up in front of me. He just never gave a shot. So like those times things lined up. But is there something that like maybe we're missing? Is it just really time in the stand? Or I mean,
I, I
how do you do it?
I mean, I get a bunch of time off,
Yeah.
but it's a lot easier when you can, my time off is I might be able to hunt Monday afternoon. I
Mm-hmm.
might be able to hunt Thursday afternoon. So it's like you want to go in there, you want to put feed out, but you can't even get, it's like sometimes you feel like you put the feed out, but you're hunting that same day. It feels like a waste of time
Mm-hmm.
when that buck or whatever early season when that buck is not on that pattern anymore. So that's really frustrating to me. But there are those times where I get that 2 or 3 day window where okay, if the wind, the wind's got to be right and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you get in there and you can hunt that spot where it's baited for a little bit, and then you can actually kill that deer. But yeah, I get frustrated just like everybody else sometimes because I've got obligations,
Yeah.
the sports and everything. But it's the time, that's and having the deer, I don't have any 150s on camera, so I can't kill 150s if we don't have 150s. If you don't have
Yeah.
130s, you can't kill 130s. It's that kind of deal. But
Yeah.
as far as consistently killing good deer, um, it, time, that's what it is, and trigger control. As far as
Yeah.
depending on what kind of deer you want to kill, but yeah, the time, these tracks I got around my house sometimes they don't produce it. Like this one that's near my house hasn't produced it produced 120-inch deer in probably 5 years.
Wow.
So I let my kids mainly just hunt on those. My youngest one,
Yeah.
and he has a blast at them. And we get to spend a lot of time, and we can sneak out of the stand. It might be 10 minutes early to make a practice that's up the street.
Mm-hmm.
Those are real important. Those are like really important to me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the time, man. That's pretty much what kills big deer is time, and you got to have them.
Got it. So
And early season, but up until rifle season, man, that's the best time to do it.
oh, dude. So I was going to touch on that because what I'm hearing is I need to quit my job from September to January, which I don't know how to pull that off. But yeah, I keep trying to convince myself this season because this season honestly started off really, really good. Like Trike was showing up all the time.
Oh yeah,
I'm still convinced he's dead, right?
yeah.
That
It's
one dude
been a
that
while
said
since he showed up, hasn't it?
it's been it'll be 2 months in 3 days.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, but here's all right. So I'm gonna pick your brain on this. This isn't the direction I was gonna go, but I want to ask you. So he was consistent all early season, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I literally sent photos of him to you guys probably every single day leading up
Yeah.
to season. Then I saw him late September when the hurricane came through, messed that up, whatever. he was still showing up, had him daylight a couple of times. And then what it ended up happening is on this spot, it's 1 acre on Jackson Lake. So across the street from this 1 acre, they were starting to build a house. They were clearing trees out. He was still sticking around. There was a couple heavy machinery equipment that was around, and he didn't really seem to like it, but he didn't seem to care too much.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed, and I didn't put two and two together, what I noticed was November 2nd was the last photo of him I got. Well, that's around the time that they started actually building the house, and there was people in there all the time making a ton of noise. Not just machines moving around, but actual people. Now, I'm not saying that's why he disappeared, because I did have a bigger buck show up for a couple days in November. It was never during daylight. It was always middle of the night, but he was still there. So logic tells me, well, if Trike was around, he would still do the same thing, right?
Right.
But I mean, do you think it's possible that because of all the construction that he's like, to hell with this, I'm leaving?
Was he betting where the construction is?
Very close to it.
Very
close to it. So
I mean, it's hard to say without seeing it.
mm-hmm.
Betting is around there and everything, but I think you still show up at night sometime.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And it just kills me, dude, because
disappear, and then they've been there, you have history with them for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there, and then all of a sudden they're just gone, and then they come back next year. I've never had that happen before. I've had deer, like there's just one buck, I call him El Toro. He was an 8-pointer in 2021. Then he was a 9. Then he was another 8. And this year he's got like 4 on one side, and he's got like a split coming up. But it's like that deer drives me nuts. I never get daylight pictures. He just shows up randomly. This is on a track that's several thousand acres.
Mm-hmm.
I can't peg this deer. I mean, he's driving me nuts. I'd love to kill him, but I've got like 3 daylight pictures in 4 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's something.
Well, and that's the thing with it is like, he never left last year, even when he shed us. Well, that's not true. He was gone for 12 days, right? So when he disappeared in November, I'm like, oh, he'll be back. He did this last year. And then now we're in almost January. And I haven't seen him every it's so
track, when you're hunting on a small track during the rut, that deer is going to disappear for there's no doubt about that. But he should be, he was back this time last year earlier, or he was back a couple of weeks before this time last year. I would say he's probably dead.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's bothering me about it is I posted that photo for like 6 hours on Facebook in the hunting, hunting in the Georgia Piedmont or whatever. Yeah. And there was a couple people that were like, oh, I saw him or whatever. And I'd reach out to him and be like, hey, did you? Can you send me a photo? One guy sent me a photo of a deer that was definitely not him. And I'm like, no. And then another dude commented and was like, oh yeah, I killed him this morning before church. So I messaged him personally and was like, hey, can you send me a photo to basically put my mind at ease? Like, okay, if he's dead, he's dead, right? I don't want to sit there chasing a ghost.
Yeah.
No. Dude never responded, never followed up, nothing. And so I'm just like, okay, well, I still have no idea. So, I mean, he could literally show up now or never again.
Yeah.
And it low key bothers me because I'm just like, I just want to know.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, that this season's been weird, man. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, have you noticed any sort of movement change after we had that really gnarly hurricane come through? Because after that thing came through, I feel like it threw the deer off super, super bad. Not just for us, but the whole Southeast.
I remember that day once it cleared out,
mm-hmm.
I got to hunt that afternoon, and that was a magical afternoon. That was the best early season afternoon I'd had all season. It was really good.
Yeah, I saw like 20 deer that night and trike. That's the night that he showed up, and I had my bow on the ground when he did. So like that, it just is weird, man. Because the rut I heard from, well, not even heard, like I experienced it too. It was not dead, but I didn't see any rutting activity at all. And then I know Thor was talking about it. I think you might. Well, were you tagged out before November?
Yeah, I was tagged out.
That's right. Okay.
October, I think 15th.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was in the woods. I got to hunt like that 2 week kind of prime time. I got about 4 or 5 days. Then I saw a bunch of chasing.
Hmm.
I saw some chasing early December, mature bucks chasing, not just spikes harassing a doe. I mean, like
Yeah.
really chasing, 3 or 4 bucks behind one doe. But yeah, I saw some pretty good rutting activity, but I wasn't in the woods a ton that time because I wasn't, I was just shooting does.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have shot a hot doe and watch, see what happens. I've done that in the past, and you're like, you're thinking, man, let's not make any noise. But if you kill that hot doe, it's awesome. All the bucks. I mean, it's just they just come. You can't even hardly get them off the deer. I mean,
Yeah.
they just stick around.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was about like normal time, normal activity that I usually see.
Interesting. You're like one of the only people that said that. Hmm.
We try to keep our, this particular track. We try to keep our, buck to doe ratio, 1 to 2,
Yeah.
and we do a lot of doe management, and that helps a ton as far as seeing running activity.
Yeah.
Really
dude. So, all right, let's get into that. I want to talk about your season because you've had a crazy season. So, before we get into the bucks, how many does have you killed this year?
I've killed 18. Yeah. And that was through the DMAT. That 2 of them were not on the DMAT property. And then the rest, the 16 were on the deer management assistance program, which is put on by the DNR. I'll kind of explain what that is. They come out to your property. They do, they kind of look around all your property, and then they come out with how many your carrying capacity,
Hmm.
right? Then you have to do a trail cam survey for 2 weeks in August. And then they get all that data. You have to set the cameras for 5 minutes over feed. You have to make sure feed is kept there.
Mhm.
They get all that data, and then they come back and tell you, all right, this is how many deer you need to kill. They give you management buck tags. They give you doe tags. We had 20 management buck tags. We had 80 doe tags this year. That doesn't come off my personal.
Lord.
So I've just been taking buddies. My boy's been killing deer. I mean, it's been fun, but I'm kind of a little burnt out at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun shooting does, but it's a lot of work too because you have to take every jawbone has to be labeled and put in the back.
Really?
You have to get all the weights, everything. So it's
Wow.
not just shoot them and we're done.
Yeah.
You have to get all that information. Then you get a special green tag, like they kind of look like that the WNA gives you, like
Mhm.
you kill a buck on a WNA. Then you put it on them and take it to the processor. I feed a lot of families. I got football family friends. 2 or 3. Some families get up to 4 deer a year. I take it to the processor and they come pick them up. But yeah, I feed a lot of people that don't hunt. They the way I look at it, they love the deer meat. They don't hunt, but that's just somebody that's for us.
Yeah.
As far as hunters,
Yeah.
they're happy. They're happy as can be when they get some deer meat.
I never looked at it that way. So, are you guys the reason why Chip had to close down a couple days because they were so full?
Well, I'm actually a member. I had to join,
Yeah.
because last year I was like, well, I can't even go shoot any does. There's no processors open.
Yeah.
So I actually joined this year, and he was closed several times in November. I just
Mhm.
here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that was stressful, dude. Because I'm out there trying to hunt and kill a buck or something. And I text him. I'm like, "Hey, you got a spot?" He goes, "Man, we're slap full." I mean, you remember me texting you guys a couple weeks
yeah,
ago
yep,
when I was like, "What do I do?" And I mean, let me clarify on that because I don't want people listening to this thinking, I don't know how to deal with a deer.
right.
But the thing is, my house isn't set up for it properly, and
People's didn't, and most people take him to the processor.
exactly. And
Yeah,
I've been spoiled the past couple of years because any deer I kill, I just take it up to Chip and he handles it.
mm-hmm.
So it like when we were talking and you were like, well, do you know how to gut a deer? I'm like, I know how. It doesn't mean I'm good at it.
Yeah,
I know how. It's just for 2 years I haven't had to do it and I haven't had to process my own. And it's just I was sweating a little bit. I was like,
yeah.
dude, I'm just gonna leave it in the back of the truck and I'll take it to Chip the next day.
I
Which
mean,
I didn't even kill anything. But
I process deer, but it's very very time consuming,
yep.
and I like taking my deer to someone else to do the processing, and I keep going with my life and hunting and
Mm-hmm.
practice and going to work and everything else. But I'm not knocking anybody that does it on their own. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
I
I
just,
mean, shoot, that's how I was gonna do it when I first started because I'm like, oh, dude, I'm spending money on, food and gear and stuff. Why am I gonna pay someone else to do it? And then I did it like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, okay, now I kind of understand. I was like, I don't have 2 hours, in a week. I'm already busy enough. I can't hang this thing up. And then you do it early season, and yellow jackets are all over you, and I
oh
hate
yeah,
yellow jackets, so I said to hell with it.
yeah.
I do want to ask you though. So one of the does that you've shot this year, wasn't she like 20 years old or something like that?
She was 13.
13, that's what it was.
Yeah.
What was the story on that? Because you posted something on Facebook and it was like this really long story, and I read all of it. But what for the people who didn't see it, like what was the story on that doe? Because it was really cool.
All right. I started hunting a particular piece of property in Morgan County
Hmm.
3 years ago. And we started, we put out cameras. Like, yeah, some of these, we got like three, I think we had three does at that time that had tags in their ear. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I actually found one of the guys on the GON forum um, that was talking about it, just doing some searches.
Hmm.
And so I reached out to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know, I remember that deer. I helped tag the deer." So there was three different ones that there was actually one that had two ear collars and a or two ear tags and a collar still on, which the
Hmm.
collar should have fell off long time ago, but it never fell off. And I'm thinking, me and my youngest son were watching her one day, and we're thinking, is this a new one? Or because I'd never seen her before, even on camera,
Hmm.
the first time I'd ever seen her.
Hmm.
And she was actually a year older than the doe I killed um, when we seen her. You know, we had four at one time. It got down to one. I guess they just died.
Wow.
I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah.
So when I started kind of picking that deer up on camera again. She was never like regular, she just kind of pop in, then you'd get her over here. There was nothing, anything regular to her. And I'd never seen her before in person ever. Um, so me and my daughter went to go hunt her, actually the day before I killed her, and she wouldn't come out in the food plot. Like there was no deer out there. So she stood there in the woods about 10 yards in, and I could never get a shot at her. Then she just finally
Oh,
walked away. Yeah, she never came out. So
huh.
that afternoon there was a couple of deer out in the food plot. She felt a little more comfortable. So she
Yeah.
she did the same thing though. She stood out there and looked into the food plot like 10 yards in the woods again, and just, made sure everything was kosher before she came out. And she finally worked her way out, and, I shot her. I knew she was blind in one of her eyes, and that was,
Hmm.
that was new this year. But she was limping as well when she came out. So, it was one of those things that was like, do I shoot her, not shoot her? The other three have already stopped. They've disappeared, probably
Hmm.
dead. I was like, man, I really wanted to kill her, and so I made the decision to kill her. But I know she had been passed several years before,
Yeah.
by other hunters.
That's so cool, dude.
Yeah.
13 years old. I mean, that's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I need to send you a photo of that doe that I shot last year that my wife named Mary, and she won't let me shoot, which to this day I'm still mad about, but I promised her I wouldn't. Because she has kind of the same, like I was thinking of her as you were describing this deer.
Yeah.
She's very old. She limps, which is my fault, but still. Um, she's just old. Like I would say she's got to be pushing 200 pounds. And I
Oh,
told Jessica, I'm like, you need to understand, like this deer, there's coyotes on this property. On this 1 acre piece, I get one coyote that's big that's coming through. And I'm like, he's gonna catch up to her one day because she
yeah.
can't run. I've seen her when she blows, because it happened what last week, I think, when I was hunting up there. Um, something spooked them, and one of the other does blew, and this deer made it 40 yards, and she stopped and turned around, and I'm like, okay, can you not run away? Because she didn't run. She like kind of hopped a little bit, and that was it. And I'm like, dude, I just want to end that, because
Yeah.
I know she's suffering, and it just it kills me, man. Like having a doe that old, I want to see what you think when I send you the photo, because I mean, she's got like that saggy chest. She's big bodied. It's just, I
You
feel
could,
like you're the guy. Like you're the guy that could tell me, oh yeah, she's.
that deer actually, since I got her on camera in 2021, she hasn't had a baby. She's had no babies. So I've
Wow.
got a picture with a baby, but the baby's with the other doe that she's with. She
Hmm.
was a real loner. Most of the time, she's just by herself.
Hmm.
Um, and yes, she dressed out like 89 pounds. She wasn't like the biggest doe out there. I'm sure she was real big at one point, but
Yeah.
I guess when they get to a certain point, they're kind of like they don't get. I guess they lose muscle mass. I'm not sure, but she was not the biggest doe out there
That's
for sure.
crazy. Well, maybe Mary's not that old.
But
Um,
her head was huge. I mean,
oh, okay.
you could tell it wasn't like your regular ordinary doe. I mean, her head was huge.
Yeah. I think she was ready to go based off what you're explaining. Like, she's like, Darrell, please, please. All right, cool. Well, I want to talk about your bucks and not just the ones that you got this year. I guess we can start with that, but I want to look at previous bucks because you've killed some freaking giants, dude. But the bucks that you killed this year, what's the story on the first one? And then we'll get into the 6 point because that 6 point to this day is probably the coolest buck I've seen any of my buddies kill this year. I
Well,
mean, I'm so happy for you. Like 130-inch six, but I'll shut up. What's the story on the first deer you killed?
first deer,
Or first buck?
I picked up a piece of property with a buddy of mine in Newton County. He'd actually had it for years, never killed a buck out there. So
Can
I
you
put
tell me
out,
where in Newton?
do what?
Can you tell me where in Newton off the podcast? Because
Yeah, I'll tell you.
okay, because I'm
Um,
not Newton or Newton.
but so I put a camera out in March, just looking for some turkeys. Kind of
Mhm.
didn't had like one hen, so I never turkey hunted over there. But I just left it out there in a field. It has a pretty big field out there, and so I started about June. Started getting this bachelor group with like 8 bucks. They would just come around every so often, and I started picking up this deer. I'm like, man, that deer's pretty nice. So July came around. I'm like, that deer. I want to hunt that deer.
Yeah.
So I moved my camera off the field and got back in the hardwoods and started picking them up. It was August. He started getting pretty regular. So I was like, well, I'm going to put a ladder stand up. So I put a ladder stand up, something with easy access.
Hmm.
When I'm looking for a spot, to put a camera, like
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. I'm going to be in that tree, or I'm going to put a ladder stand right here, or, climber, whatever.
Mhm.
That's the first thing I'm looking for, once I found an area where, they want to be. And so I put that ladder stand up, but that deer wasn't doing, the first time I hunted him, that deer wasn't doing what I thought he was doing. When he was coming into the camera, he was circling the camera. So I was thinking he was coming from the opposite direction. So I'm sitting in the stand. I think it was opening afternoon, or maybe it was this Sunday afternoon. I can't remember.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I hear something behind me, and he's with the other bigger 8-pointer coming. Like he's coming. They're crossing a road that's going through the property that gets. I mean, the farmer uses this road all the time, so
Yeah.
they're kind of used to cars and everything. So that was one of my things. I was like, this is going to be a pretty quick and easy access and quiet.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, I'm hunting a wind that's blowing in my face, and I got deer. They're coming from behind me. They're blowing. He didn't catch my wind because he was a little bit further down to my left. But when he got across, a deer started blowing behind me,
Mm.
and he didn't run off, but he didn't come into my shooting lane.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to change something up. So it was like that opening Wednesday. I kept getting him on camera. He wasn't spooked or anything. I kept getting him on camera. And I was at football practice, one of those deals. So the opening Wednesday, I said, I'm getting off work early, and I'm going to put a blind up. And, blinds are, you hear, man, the deer takes some time to get used to. Sometimes that's the case, but man, these deer just like it wasn't there. I mean,
Yeah.
he was there. I put it up at like 3 o'clock. He was there at 7 o'clock that afternoon,
Wow.
and it was 25 yards away from my camera.
Yeah.
So that next afternoon, I told you I skipped practice, and I was like, I'm going to see if I can kill this deer. And sure enough, it worked out perfect. He came from across the road again, and then I watched him for like 10 minutes before he got to the bait. And, I killed him with my Raven crossbow, and that was pretty much it. But
Hell yeah.
he was 136, what he scored. He was a mainframe 9, then he had some kickers off his base.
Can I take out a loan to come hunt some of those places? 'Cause, dude, I'm telling you. Oh my God, 136. That and for people listening that aren't Georgians or don't live in the South or whatever, 136 for us is solid. I mean, 136 anywhere is solid in my opinion, but
Oh,
we
definitely.
don't get like 150s, 160s, 170s. I mean, I got a buddy that was on two 180s this year, and that's unheard of, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're Lee Ellis. And
Yeah.
even then over here, he kills what, one? So I mean, that gosh, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So
And I don't hunt on any, these are sizable tracts of land.
yeah.
I don't hunt on any metro tracks or
Yeah,
anything.
these are country deer.
Yeah, exactly.
God, dude. So I gotta ask you, and I I give you shit sometimes. I'll give people shit about shooting a crossbow. Why did you choose to shoot a crossbow this year? Or I guess on that hunt.
I've I've had that crossbow for 5 years. I've never even killed a deer with it. I don't get nothing
Wow.
really gets me. I don't know. It was close to the house,
Yeah.
and I've had big deer I could hunt that were on my tracks that are 45 minutes away. But
Hmm.
then you get home at like 9 something o'clock. I got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That
Hmm.
just doesn't appeal to me, at all. So I've not hunted a bunch of nice deer over the years, but this deer was 5 miles down the road, and it was something I could slip in. I could get off work just a touch early, and I could go hunt. So that's why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to kill this deer. And there was two other hunters trying to kill that deer already. So I was like, this deer may not make it till gun season or muzzleloader season. So I was like, I got to get in there quick.
Yeah.
That's why, and I ended up selling my bow that I bought brand new in 2004, my compound that I haven't used in years. I ended up selling it this year because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to put in the time that I need to practice with it. Just not. If I get free time, I'd rather go to the rifle range. I mean, be honest.
Yeah.
I do a lot of reloading for myself, and I love just making loads for my rifles and seeing what they do and seeing what they do to deer. That's
Yeah.
my thing. That's like my second hobby is, reloading and rifles and stuff like that.
I mean, I can understand that because, like, it sounds like you're reloading and seeing what the bullets do and what your, I guess, bullet build does to the deer. It's the same thing I do with broadheads and arrows and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
get
always
it.
eking out. I'm like trying to look inside the cat,
Yep.
see what the bullet did. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Dude, when I shot that doe earlier this year with the beast head, I did that exact thing because it was full pass through. She went 30 yards and fell over, and I was like looking at her. I'm like, all right, so she obviously tucked because that was the cool thing about that broadhead is, I mean, I've shot deer with mechanicals and the mega meat and
Oh yeah.
fixed blades and all that stuff, and I do inspect what they do. I mean, that mega meat was nasty, but when I shot her with the beast, she actually tucked and turned away. And I thought the shot was high, but I guess I was higher up in the tree than I thought. So it hit a little higher than I guess you could say I was aiming at, but maybe that's where I was aiming. I honestly don't remember. I kind of blacked out a bit, but shot and then it goes straight through. And I wasn't expecting that with a 2-inch broadhead. I was not expecting a full pass through buried in the dirt. And I did the same thing. You could see where it shaved the hair and then it went in and came out. And it's just something about that. It's just interesting,
Yeah.
So I totally understand where you're coming from that.
I
So
mean,
so you're bowless now.
yeah, I just got the crossbow. That's it.
Hmm.
Yep.
We need to change that. We need to change that.
Hey, I got a lot of rifles though.
I
But
know it. For all the haters out there, if you're listening and you know the name Southeastern Bow Hunter, we don't discriminate. Okay, we don't. We'll have gun hunters, spear throwers, freaking knife fighters, whatever. If you use any legal weapon to kill a deer, you can come on the podcast, especially crossbows.
proof.
Yeah, I approve completely. I mean, I don't care. The crossbow thing's interesting though, because like, I don't really care. I've killed 2 deer. Like the one that's back here was the first. There we go. That one was the first deer I ever shot with a crossbow, and he went 30 yards. And
Mm-hmm.
then another deer over here on the wall, I killed him with one, and he went 10 yards. And actually, what's crazy is he was still alive when I walked up on him, just barely, but his pulse was still going. I put my hand on his neck. I'm sure you've heard the story, but
Yeah.
freaked me out. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I didn't mean to. Dude, I'm the last thing you're going to see before you die. That's great. Um, And that honestly was the last time I used it, or well, last time I killed with it. I used it the rest of the season. But
Yeah.
people want to be like, oh, you can't shoot a crossbow unless you're disabled or elderly, and you're neither. So
Nope.
screw that. I will say I do lean on the side if you're able, like physically able, you should shoot a compound bow. But you're, in my opinion, a special case because you are so busy, that
It
if
it's
anyone
where
wants to say anything, let them, like who cares?
if you're using a blind, it doesn't matter what you're shooting.
Mm-hmm.
See you anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care what anybody shoots. None of that stuff gets under my skin. It did when I was in my early 20s. I was
Yeah.
a compound shooter, but well, actually, you had to have the medical card then. But none of that stuff gets under. I don't care what people kill. You know, if you're happy, that's cool. I don't care. It doesn't
So
bother me or
if
another.
somebody shoots a fawn with spots,
That doesn't bother me either.
really,
No, I
dude,
don't.
is it bad that I get mad about that?
Let me now. If my buddies did that,
Yeah.
they're gonna catch a little grief about it.
Okay.
We're gonna.
Okay.
I'll help them gut the thing. I don't care. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna be making fun of you. You do that.
Okay. Good. Yeah, because man, people make the jokes. It's like, oh, fawns, they got targets on them still. I'm like, I don't let that thing live at least a year if you want to kill it.
And
But
I don't. I mean, I've shot does early bow season with that had fawns that had spots. Especially when I was younger.
yeah,
Now, I mean, I don't care about. I mean, I love shooting does, but
yeah,
when they're that little, I'm gonna have to pass. I can't do it. I don't
yeah.
have heart anymore.
Yeah, my daughter and my nieces, man, they'll give me crap every first month of season because they're, I'll tell them, oh, I'm gonna shoot a doe or this or that, and they're like, you're gonna shoot Bambi's mom, and I'm like, it's not. No, I'm not gonna shoot a doe that's got fawns with spots. I do tell them though, I'm like, as soon as those spots are gone, that doe is on the list.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that whatsoever.
I don't want to mess with a doe in bow season because that's hot weather, dragging. I don't
Mm-hmm.
and
I
that's
mean,
why.
if you can do it where they just drop like that, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
how
with the
often?
rifle, that's
Well, yeah,
the plan to drive
yeah.
right up to them. I'm not hunting in the deep woods, getting off the main trails. I'm hunting where I can drive right up to one and throw it in the back of my truck.
That's exactly what I did with that doe too. I backed right up, hauled her big butt in there, and I was like, "All right, boys, let's go."
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about a certain deer before we get on to the 6 point, because I think we've probably got maybe 20, 25 minutes left, which just means we're gonna have to do another episode because there's still plenty that I want to talk about. But you had a specific deer, so you invited me on one of these management hunts, and I'm sorry that I have not gone on one. I learned something about myself this year that if I get more than one big buck on camera, you can't take me off that property. It's
I don't blame
impossible.
you, dude. I don't
Like, yeah, I that was a big struggle this year because every spot had a big deer, and I'm like, where do I go? And then it's a long story. I'm not going to vent about it right now, but you had a specific buck that you sent me a photo of that you said was a management buck, and my jaw fell because I'm like, Darrell, that's a huge deer. Is that deer still alive?
No, that deer has been gone. I'm pretty sure someone killed him because we had him all summer, and then like around the rut, he disappeared. We haven't picked him up on camera again. I'm not saying I didn't have any history with that deer, so I can't tell you what he did last year.
Yeah,
He could come back, but no one on the property that I've asked has seen that deer anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, our management buck is if it's 3.5 or older and it doesn't have at least 8 points, that's like that deer I killed, that 6-pointer. That was considered a management buck, but I didn't kill him on that DMAT property.
Okay.
So he was actually right next to the DMAT property and was actually on the DMAT property the morning I killed him, but that's the first time we'd ever had him on camera over there. But that deer is like, how many 130 and 6-pointers am I going to be able to hunt in my life or in Georgia? Probably never again.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I don't care if that deer, what property he's on. I'm gonna kill him. It'd be great if I could catch him over across the creek, but that just didn't happen. So,
well, see, that's what kills me about this whole trike situation because as you know, he was looking real good
Mhm.
earlier this year, and then he broke that main beam. I'm convinced he had a 130-inch frame. I'm not saying he was 130, but the frame was there, and it's just like, God, I wish I could have him on the wall right now. Like right there, that empty spot. That's where he should be. But
Yeah.
man, he's probably. I wonder. So, all right, I do want to ask you this, but I want to hear the story on the 6 point. So let's talk about that, and then if I remember, I want to ask you about poaching because I do feel like that's something that is going on around here that maybe more people don't talk about.
Hmm.
But before we get into that, what's the story on that six? Because 130-inch 6 point does not come along very often.
All right. So I got, like I said, I joined a new club. And so me and a buddy of mine, Thomas Robinson, started putting out some cameras over the summer. And he like showed up pretty much immediately. I'm like, good gosh, this deer is freaking awesome. You know, it was in July, and you could really tell what he was by then, and just the mass on him. I've never seen a deer in Georgia with mass like that. So put the cameras out. We're getting them just constantly, just every day, getting them on camera. Then all of a sudden, he just disappears. I'm like, dang. So move some other cameras, start picking up like, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away. This is during the summertime. Usually they don't move a lot during the summertime, but yeah,
Yeah.
he just up and moved, and he stayed over there. I mean, he stayed over there for like a month.
Huh.
And then I actually seen him out of the stand. I was hunting. It was right after the hurricane. All right. So I saw him. Well, 4 bucks came out in front of me, just like they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
It was getting dark. And you know how those early bow season hunts go, man. When the wind dies down to almost nothing, it's like it could go any direction. And sure enough, I could feel it in the back of my neck. Just
Mm-hmm.
in those 4 bucks. The oldest was a 3.5-year-old 8. You know, he started. I could tell he could smell me, but it wasn't like he just ran off, but I could tell he's getting nervous. So I was like, dang it. I said, it's about dark, ain't no big deal. And sure enough, that 6 pointer, he wasn't with those bucks, but he came out and he could see those other bucks. And once they turned and to go back into it was kind of like in a select cut. Once they turned to go back into the thick stuff, that 6 pointer wheeled around, and he didn't show up for like 3 weeks in that spot after that. And there's no way he smelled me because he was further down to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back to the other spot, where I've been getting him on camera during the summer. So it got later in the bow season, and it got into October, and then I start picking them up in a different spot. It's about 500 or so yards away from the spot I'd been getting them back in early summer.
Mm-hmm.
But he would be down there on this particular food plot, but he wouldn't be back up there up on the hill where he was during the summer. He would just stay down there. So this was starting to get into muzzleloader season, and I just saw on cameras where he started getting like early in the mornings. He was starting to get closer to the daylight, and he would be down there a couple of times a night. So he really liked that area. And so I started hunting him in the mornings. I hunt him in the afternoon. And, of course, it was really hot at first. And I was like, there's a cool front coming. So one afternoon I sat down there. I saw a bunch of bucks down there at the time. He never come out. And like, I get a picture when I'm walking out. He's like a mile away at another camera. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So that night, that afternoon, I'm thinking, or on my way home, I'm thinking, where am I going to hunt tomorrow? Because I don't know where he's going to be. Luckily, he showed back up that night. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to go there. And I got other guys that are hunting. So I'm like trying to beat them to the stand,
Yeah.
everything. They don't know what all's going on, but I'm trying to beat them to the stand. And I got there. I'm not even going to tell you what time, ridiculously early. And so I got the spot, and then I got like zero service in this stand. I have my buddy Thomas. He has AT&T on his Tacticams. He gets better service than I did, so he put his camera down in the hole down there. And so I'm like just waiting for it to get daylight. I'm looking. I was like, I see a couple of deer down there in the food plot, but it was just I couldn't tell exactly what they were. And so I like send a text out to my buddy. I'm like, I said, I think I see the 6 down there. He goes, and I never heard back from him. And then finally, I could tell it was him, and he said, "It's him, it's him." So I'm like waiting. He was like very comfortable. He wasn't going anywhere. He's just out there feeding.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like a 178-yard shot with a muzzleloader, and I put it right behind the shoulder, and he ran probably 50 yards and crashed.
Dude.
But man, when I walked up to the deer, I'm like, God, this deer is. I mean, the mass is just anything like I've ever seen around here. The Midwest deer, yeah, you get mass like that pretty often, but not like around here.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like you sent us all a picture, and you said he was like 128 or something.
Yeah.
Which, even then, for a 6-point is huge, right? I think the biggest one I saw killed this year, some dude in Georgia. I don't know what it is about this year, man. There's been so many 6-points getting killed, like just big sixes. And there was one guy, it's the only 6-point I've seen that was a little bit bigger than yours. I think it was like high 130s or something.
Yeah.
He didn't look it. He looked like 150s. But that photo you sent, and you said it was 128, and then like a few hours go by and you're like, actually, we were wrong. He's 130. And dude, I lost it. I was like, 130-inch 6 is
yes. I've never shot a corner before. And so it was me and my buddy did it.
Mm-hmm.
Where we went wrong, like that next morning, my buddy goes, dude, we didn't add the main beam. We didn't do right.
Yeah.
He's on a 6-pointer. You divide the from the G2 to the end of the tip, you divide it in half, and that's where you measure it. Well, we didn't do that. He gets the same mass measurement there twice. So it was like 4 inches on his last measurement twice, where we actually, what we did was measure the half and then the tip and measure it again. Cause I was trying to get to the processor, and I was like, we got to do this real quick. He's like, you need to make a decision if you're going to mount this thing, man. I said, man, I want to know what it scores before I, invest into a mountain. So when he said 128, I was like, yeah, I'll mount that deer. Yeah, definitely. And then the next morning he's like, dude, we didn't do that right. It's like 130 and 2/8. That's what it should be, because the last mass measurement we messed up on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was something, man. I'll never be able to chase a deer like that again, for sure.
You say that, but I mean, your track record speaks for itself, honestly. So go ahead.
The club, like I said, I never had history with this deer because I'd never been to this property. But the other club members said that they'd had that deer for at least 3 years, the last 3 years. He was definitely 5.5.
Yeah.
Or older,
Jesus. So before we wrap it up with the poaching thing, because I really am curious on your opinion of that. What is the biggest deer you've killed?
144 is the biggest.
And when was that?
That was back in 2007. Yeah.
Wow.
That was before baiting. Yeah.
Damn. I feel like that's a whole nother world, because all I've ever known is being able to bait, right? Like I started a year after it became legal. And that first year, man, I had quite a few nice bucks. I just didn't know what I was doing. And God, I mean, how different is it now compared to then?
Man, I look back at all the deer, especially in early season, if I baited back then, the deer I could have killed, I mean, I don't know. But it's a lot different. It was just a waiting game. It was, go do your home. There was more homework to do then, even though like right now between hunts, all I do is scout, move cameras, go put out bait here, I'll do that. I'll do that for 3-4 hours every day between hunts. But he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm trying to find deer,
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make the most of my time that I have.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I do. I go scout, move cameras, go to this track, move cameras. If I'm not on a deer, during the rut, it's a little bit different. Once you get to know a piece of property, you kind of know where the bucks like to hang out during the rut. But early season and late season, if I'm not tagged out, I'm moving cameras and looking for sign. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
Gosh, dude. The deer you've killed just blow my mind. I mean, like, it just does, man. It's crazy. So, all right, I want to ask you about poaching, because a little part of me thinks that maybe trike and a couple other deer that I've hunted in the past have gotten poached. You've been around this area and hunted this area way, way longer than I have. Not to make you sound old. If I did, I'm sorry. But you've been in it longer than I have. Is that like a big thing in our area? Is poaching?
You know, I think poaching has gotten less
Really?
last 30 years because you've got more people in the woods. Now you got how many cameras are out there now? Before
True.
there was no cameras, so you didn't even know you had a poacher until you saw them. You know, where cameras now they're just everywhere. I'm afraid to pee in the woods because I'm like looking for cameras. They're everywhere.
I do that on public, dude. If I'm scouting on public, I will do a full 360 twice and be like, okay, there's
Right.
no cameras.
But I
So
think
funny.
used to you would hear shots in the night. You're at camp, you hear some shots in the night. You're like somebody's poaching a deer. But now I just don't think there's so much traffic on roads. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I mean, it still happens for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just you have a lot of things working against the poachers now that we didn't have 30 years ago. As far as the cell cameras, somebody sees you on a cell camera and they live right up the street, they're coming to look to find you.
Yeah.
Where before you didn't know it.
Well, and we do see it on Facebook groups a lot, like people posting like, who is this? This person stole the camera. I mean, hell, I had 2 cameras stolen off public this year, which
Yeah.
I should have known better, but I mean, it was in a spot. I've hung cameras for years. I've never had a problem. So it got me thinking, like, is there more people out there that are just, doing sketchy things, or is it just had a bad luck season?
On the big track that's in Newton and Jasper, we'll have people on 4-wheelers come through.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time we find out where they live. I posted on like this year, we had a guy on a side by side. Dude, within 10 minutes, I knew where this guy lived. And we called the police and
Wow.
to his house. So it's like it's hard to get away with stuff now that you would get away with 30 years ago.
So what you're saying is if I try to pull a Charles Beatty on y'all's clubs, you would know.
If you have a mask on, you'll be all right. Because what are you going to do with the mask?
Hey,
it's hard to identify somebody with a mask on.
I know I'm joking here, but look, my season's been rough. Don't give me any ideas, Darrell. I'm kidding. Yeah, I don't know, man. This whole CJ Alexander thing like really got me thinking about poaching in our areas because that dude really, in my opinion, messed up. He made a big mistake, and I don't know if he feels bad about it or not, but it's just something I think about because it's like I get jokes all the time from buddies now when I send a nighttime photo of, that split brow buck or Tyson or any of those big deer that's on the new spot I'm hunting. And they'll be like, yeah, man, just, give him the CJ Alexander special. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going out there with a spotlight and my bow or a crossbow and shooting this deer. But it does make you wonder,
Yeah, that deer that's a totally different situation. That deer he was wanting to make money with that deer.
100%.
And he was going to do anything to kill that deer, but yeah, it's a shame that deer had to go out like that. And now it doesn't it gets notoriety, but it's bad notoriety,
and like even this summer, dude, with talking about trike, how constant he was in there. There was many, many days leading up to season. And I'm like, if I didn't have morals, I saw the deer 2 or 3 times in person, middle of summer.
Yeah.
And he did not care that I was there. And it's like, it would be so easy, and it's just those intrusive thoughts. And I just really wonder if people, give into them because there's plenty of spots you could just walk in if there's deer there and you just pop them and no one ever knows.
Yeah. Especially if it's on your private spot.
Yeah.
That's still, you kill them at night, that's still poaching. But when you think poaching, you're thinking, all right, I'm going to go kill this on somebody else's land or shoot it out of my truck or whatnot. But yeah, I've had some suspicions over the years from a couple of guys, doing that, but I don't know for sure. So I don't accuse anybody of just kind of thoughts in my head.
Yeah. Well, we know a few people that do some shady shit, unfortunately. And it is what it is, man. There's nothing you can do about it. It just makes me wonder because you hear all these stories. And I mean, I'll I'll say this. I know of a story of some people we know. And I'm gonna be very, very cryptic about this. I can give you more details after because it's not. I don't know how I feel about it, but
Yeah.
let's just say I was told a story that someone of authority in a city not too far from us basically gave permission to spotlight.
Mm.
Yeah. And was like, if you have any issues, let me know. And I'm just like, man, it kind of makes my stomach churn a little bit because it's like, dude, why?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've had a rough season. Does that mean I'm going to go out and shoot the does that I just had on camera 5 minutes from my house? No. I mean,
Right.
it is what it is, man. And I don't know. You see all these negative things in the world, and it makes you wonder, like, is that the route we're going, or is it just social media that's making it? Because you and Kip, you and Kip on Facebook, y'all rile some people up sometimes. More Kip than you, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. It's I guess the perfect way to wrap this episode up for now is, where do you think our hunting community is going? Do you think it's getting better? Because you could say the hunting community in general, right, throughout the whole country, but like the Newton County, Rockdale County, Morgan County, like all of that, where we're at, where do you think it's headed? Do you think we're headed towards maybe more people passing bucks, or do you think we're still in that it's brown, it's down stage, I guess?
It's better, with corn, we're killing more deer, but when you sit and talk to the processors, we're killing better deer
Yeah.
than we used to kill. Because now everybody knows what's on. They're more aware of what's on camera. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot more trophy hunting going on than there was 25 years ago. There's
Yeah.
less land though. That's one bad thing, and it's really expensive to hunt a lot of these places.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, when I was growing up as a kid, shoot, it didn't matter if it was, the first 2 weeks was like you couldn't kill does, and all I'd see was does, of course. But once that opened up, I'd shoot some does. Whatever. If I once it got doe days, whatever I seen, I was shooting, and I was
Yeah.
happy about it. And I'm still happy about it. It's just hunting has changed. I wouldn't say I don't blame it all on Facebook or social media. Um, it makes you aware kind of what's being killed, but social media is not really reality.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 40 other club members that haven't killed a buck this year, but that's, you know, that's not what you see on Facebook is not really reality.
Yeah.
We're seeing all these big deer that are being killed, but, most of the population in Georgia is not killing anything over 100 inches.
True.
That's reality. But when you look in the magazines, you're like, man, everybody's killing but big bucks, but me. But
Yeah.
that's not true.
Yeah. Then they're blowing out public land spots, and I'm like, well, shit. Maybe
Right.
that's why my cameras got stolen, because a certain magazine decided to put the one place by my house that I hunt up on the cover, which I get it. I get it. They have to give them credit, but I was a little, what's the word? My feelings on that were a little confused, because I'm like, on one hand, I want that recognition for it, but on the other, stay the hell out of there. Like, I don't want anyone in there when I'm there.
I
But
understand.
it's public.
But now it's getting even I worry about this as far as, when I lose this track and this track, where am I going to go?
Mhm.
There's lots of places I used to hunt are subdivisions now, and it's really scary where we're going to be in 20 years as far as land access and
Mhm.
ability. That's kind of what I worry about. I'm not worried about what big deer we're killing all over the state. I'm worried about what's going to be left.
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to have access to anything that's 30 minutes from my house 20 years from now?
Yeah.
I can't afford to buy a big tract of land or anything. That's just not in the cards. But yeah, I don't know, man. That's
I mean,
what worries me is the access of where we're going to be at in 20 years.
yeah, we might have to pull the Seek One and just start doing it country style.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what I'm doing
I'm
this
not
year.
that, but man, I hate traffic. I do, you do traffic and I do traffic every day.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I don't want to have to do it when I'm trying to go hunt somewhere. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm talking about door knocking around here, because
oh,
I've got about 3 spots, like 3 different houses that connect to this woods where I'm hunting this new spot at.
mm-hmm.
I've already picked them out. I'm like, all right, when season's over, I'm going to you, and we'll see which one works. Because I mean, out here, it's I feel like it's one of three things. It's either permission, a club, or public. And none
Yeah.
of our public land spots go all season except for one, and it's really small. So
Right.
it makes it much harder. I didn't even hunt public this year. I mean, that's the first time in 4 years since I started bow hunting that I have not bow hunted public. I scouted, found a bunch of good deer, and just didn't go because it's like, well, what's the pressure like? I had two cameras stolen, had a bunch of people on the other cameras. What's the point? You
Mm-hmm.
know? So I definitely see what you're saying. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you before we wrapped it up, man, but damn it, I forgot what it was. Um,
Man, around here, there's all these little tracks. I know a bunch of guys that hunt. I mean, just around my house.
mhm.
And I get to hunt a little track that's right up the street from me. But yeah, just around here, there's tons of pressure. I mean, there's
Yeah,
all these little tracks. There's a hunter on them. There's a guy that his deer stands 150 yards from the back of my house, and he kills some pretty decent deer. But it's just like 10 acres, and they're just everywhere.
yeah,
They're just everywhere, which that's great. I'm not complaining or anything, but it's just hard to find stuff for sure.
yeah. I mean, I know I'm most likely losing the lake spot this year where Trike
Hmm.
was at, just because the homeowners are looking at moving, and I don't know if I really even want to hunt over there anymore, just because all the not pressure, but all the building that's going on. Like there's
Yeah.
supposed to be a lot of stuff going on there, so I might knock on a few doors. But one thing, all right, this is what I want to wrap it up with because I think this is going to be a very, very good topic to sort of cliffhanger, leave it on for the next one, whatever. But every year, Georgia DNR does a survey, right?
Yeah.
Asking like what the hunters think we need to do.
Yep.
What do you think? Because I've been thinking about this. What do you think about Georgia going to a one buck state?
Well, I have so many tracks I can hunt on. I don't like. I can. I got clubs that are one buck. That
Hmm.
I don't like the idea. Just me personally, I think we could. I would rather go to um, this buck's got to meet a certain qualification more than we're
Hmm.
at now, where it's 4 points on one side.
Yeah, yeah,
Rather do that than do the one buck because man, my season could be over in like a week
yeah.
or
True.
within the first month and a half. It's just I don't know. I wish we had 3 bucks, but not everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But as
Yeah, that.
far as looking at it personally, I don't like the 1 buck, and I don't think that would ever happen just due to people like to compare us to the Midwest. The Midwest doesn't have a deer population like we have.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't. We're people aren't shooting enough does already. And then you knock the bucks in half. Man, I don't know what would happen. You know, it, People are like, well, if we do bow only, it'll be better. I'm telling you, I've got several thousand acres that we hardly kill any bucks on, and it's not like Atlanta. Atlanta
Yeah,
growing 130-inch deer at 3 years old. That's not realistic out in the country. That just
yeah. Our 7-year-olds get that big.
right. So comparing the metro areas where they're killing these giants,
Hmm.
even on 2,000 something acres that I hunt on, we don't have deer like that. And we
Yeah.
have agriculture, but we don't have deer like that, you know? So
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't want it to change. And I
Yeah.
think it will just because we need to kill a certain amount of deer. The deer, we kill all these does so the deer that are left have their proper amount of nutrition and groceries to eat. You know,
Yeah.
a deer will eat a lot of food every year. You know,
Oh, my wallet knows that. Trust me, I know.
yeah. So that's the whole point of the DMAP is, trying to reduce the herd population so the deer that we have on there are healthier, and the deer that we have on there when they're fawns, they start out healthier.
Hmm.
Once you have a late, if you've got a deer that is bred in late or in January versus a deer that's bred in November, that baby is going to be 2.5, 3 months behind. It's never going to catch up, So if you've got less does, the bucks are able to breed them at the proper time. You know,
Mhm.
you're always going to have those December fawns that come into heat, you know, but
Yeah.
your mature does, you want all those bred in early November so that they have a better chance of being healthier once it's time to start growing horns or antlers.
Do you think they could maybe do like different section, kind of like how they did with the feed back when there was a northern section
Oh,
could feed,
North,
southern section couldn't? Do you
yeah.
think they could do something like that where like Atlanta? So I'll say Atlanta, but really just the surrounding counties like Fulton, Gwinnett, Forsyth, Cobb, if they went to $1 and maybe bump the doe number up and then let us have like the $2 and maybe I don't want to say bump it down because 10 doe tags is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's a lot, right? I mean, I know y'all are able to do it, but I think I've seen 15 does total all year.
Yeah.
Now they're always the same deer, right? But I mean, still, out of the 3 spots, I've seen 15, 20 does max. So half of that. I mean, do you think that's something maybe they could look at, or is it just basically to keep it simple, $2, 10 does, and then your extra tags if you're able to get them?
Did you see that statistic I posted on the Piedmont? It was
Mm,
about 2 weeks ago.
I
Like,
might have, but I don't remember it.
there's a very, you know, every deer's not reported. I understand that,
Yeah,
but
it's a
there's,
whole nother topic.
yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the hunters that kill more than 2 does a year is like microscopic, or 2 does or more a year
Yeah,
is microscopic. So I
that's
don't think,
crazy.
yeah, just putting it to $1, I don't think we're still going to have this. Everybody's going to just kill more does. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
Most of the guys I know are out there to hunt antlers.
yeah,
That I am in the clubs with. You know, they'll shoot some does. Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but that is their major. They're not out there to put food on the table. They're out there to put something on their wall. You know, and
Mm,
that's just the circle I hunt around.
yeah,
And I do know people that are out there just killing deer because they want to eat and feed their families.
yeah,
Against that, but that's not the majority of hunters.
yeah. I mean, I do fall into that category, which is why I've only killed 1 deer this year because I've been ridiculously picky. And I, I mean, we got what 2.5 weeks left of season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm going to be that picky anymore, to be honest. Like, because I do have, so my buddy Hunter, he's invited me to go hunt Rockdale with him the last
Okay.
3 weeks of season.
Yeah, you can.
And it originally was supposed to be does. And then I was like, well, what do I do if I see a buck? Like, just let it walk. And he's like, dude, if you see something and I'm not going to shoot it, go for it. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Like, don't say that because I know what you got on camera. Don't tell me that because I will shoot it. But it's just, that's why I wanted to bring it up because it makes me think like the amount of times I could have shot a doe this year is ridiculous. I mean, I probably could have had 6 or 7 on the ground before half of season was over. And I
Yeah.
just didn't because I was out there chasing antlers. I mean, I'll be honest, that really is the driving force behind everything that I do in the off season is trying to get these older bucks to stick around. And,
Yeah.
early season's still the best time of year, in my opinion. Like I've been hoping that this late season, cold weather, all that stuff, they're going to go back on their pattern. I haven't really seen it. So again, that's a learning thing, but it just made me think, because people talk about the $1 and they talk about early velvet season, which I'll be honest, I would be all about, even though I hate the heat. But I don't know, man. I mean, I want to do another episode with you on like all the different things that I guess could change or shouldn't change, or that maybe you've seen change over the past few years, like the baiting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says baiting makes it easier. I think it, in a sense, makes it harder because 5-year-old buck knows there's food there. He's not going to go there in daylight. Why would he? He knows it's there.
Hey, it depends on the pressure, dude. I've seen
Well, yeah,
5-year-olds. Some of these 4 and 5-year-olds deer. Some of them are just super smart, and some of them are just like relaxed and don't really care. And you're
yeah.
like, wow, that deer's not like the other ones.
Hmm.
I've seen it go both ways, but baiting has definitely made it easier. There's no doubt about.
You think
100%.
for a
Definitely
mature buck?
for a mature buck.
Hmm.
100%. Because I know where
Yeah, I'm
that
doing it wrong.
that I know where that deer most of the time, where he spends a lot of time at night a couple of times, whereas when there was no bait, I catch that deer on camera 2 or 3 times a week. Period.
Yeah.
Know exactly where that deer was going to be. But yeah, baiting is it's definitely. I mean, like I said, go to the processor. He'll tell you that we're killing bigger deer now and more of them because of baiting. They're always closed because the people are hunting over bait and killing deer.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're talking about 4 or 5 year old, but still, you go to the processor and there's bigger deer in there than there were before baiting consistently.
I mean, I did go to Chips. I did go to New Bern when I picked my doe up, and there was, and this actually is you'd think I would have seen this by now. And I know I'm kind of dragging it out a little bit. I'm sorry, but I got to tell you this because it was crazy. I walk up and his daughter comes out and I was like, "Hey, I'm here to pick up my deer." And, we do the whole check-in names, whatever. She's looking for it. And I'm looking around and there's this easily 5-year-old 10 point that is, or I'm sorry, it was 8 point, just massive, like 130, lots of mass, huge body, all this stuff. Next to him is a 1.5-year-old spike. And I'm like, that is the biggest difference. I should have taken a photo because it was like a cow next to a calf.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the hell? And it makes me think like
that could have been his first deer though. You don't know.
Oh no. I'm saying like that the difference in size is what made me say, what the hell? Because I'm like, that I feel like you don't really see that. And maybe it's just me because I don't get a lot of mature animals in front of me like that. When I saw a trike, the dude was a tank, biggest body deer I've ever seen. But like, it's just crazy to see the size difference. It makes me think that these people are, all of us are baiting. We're all feeding. Some of us like me who do it throughout the entire year. I'm thinking it is making a positive impact on their health and antler growth and all this other stuff. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way about it, but
I don't think it's making you putting out corn. I don't think it's making a huge impact as far as
corn itself. No,
even you have to feed I mean, I was in a club several years ago, kind of before, right when the protein feeds started getting big, and we'd feed 11 and 12 pallets a year on 700 acres, and I still killed my biggest buck before we started feeding. I mean, you have to really feed like an astronomical amount for it to make an impact. Really, really.
So what you're saying is just buy corn and save money.
Just buy you some corn, do your inventory. I think you're going to get more for your money out of food plots, and if property owners allow you to burn, so that's where you're going to really make a difference. I don't think putting feed in feeders, that's not going to, I just don't see it making a huge difference. But, if you got property where you can burn, that's like a huge food plot. I mean, when it starts coming up, that's nothing but forbs and food everywhere. And it's a lot better than any protein feed you can buy.
I need to win the lottery.
I
need to win the lottery because I can't do that anywhere. I do have one spot in Monticello. I could probably till it, and I tried planting clover a couple years ago, and those deer literally came in that night and ate all the seeds. I mean, there's a couple spots where it grew, but that's one thing I do want to play with is food plots.
Food plots is a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
You got to compete with a lot of weeds, coffee weed, Johnson grass, thistle. They're a ton of work. It's not like planting a fall food plot.
Well, expect a lot of calls this summer because I'm gonna figure out. I might even just throw wheat out there and just.
It won't. Well, wheat is a cool season crop, so you're not.
Oh, see, I don't know these things. See, this is why I'm asking you because I don't know. I got a green thumb when it comes to like planting tomato seeds for my daughter, but when it comes to food plots, nope. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and I would need a lot more time, I feel like, to be able to do it. But
yeah.
All right, man. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm sorry it took this long.
Yeah.
But they say good things come to those who wait. I feel like this is a really good episode. I know Thor is gonna be losing his mind when he listens to it because he's been begging me, and I'm like, dude, Darrell's busy. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, man. Is there anything big happening like for off season for you? You going hog hunting? You going out of state anywhere? Or are you just
I want to do a little bit of predator hunting. That's probably what I'll do between turkey season. I like to turkey hunt. Uh,
mhm,
between turkey season and after deer season, I want to go kill some coyotes and bobcats.
gotcha.
Might
Got
go once or twice. It ain't something I used to be bigger into it when I was younger, but uh, I would love to get a thermal, but man, I just can't invest a couple $1,000s into one or two hunts a year,
yeah,
But my buddy of mine does have a thermal, but he's gotten where he's real busy too. But I'll borrow it or something from him and go kill some.
nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, predator stuff, because I go back and forth on it, whether I could do it or not. I've never had the opportunity.
It's
But,
fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
oh, I'm sure it's fun. I just all right, I'll say this real quick before we get off of here. I have a German Shepherd,
Hmm.
and when I look at a coyote, I see a German Shepherd. And I just don't know if I could do it. Now, I will say if I was hunting and I saw a coyote attacking something, oh, it's all bets off, right? Like, yeah, I'll draw back on you, no problem. But if I'm just out there and I see this little dog trotting along and kind of sit down and scratch his ear and stuff, like I just don't know if I could do it, you
Oh man,
know?
that's how I check the zero on my rifle. Like,
Oh
if I
man.
see a coyote, it's fair game. It's on.
Yeah, I get it. And it needs to happen, you know. I mean, even buddies of mine that coon hunt, I'm like, dude, I definitely couldn't kill a raccoon. I've seen way too many TikToks of those fat little trash pandas playing around with people, and I want one as a pet. So I'm not helping. But anyway, man. Well, look, man, thank you again for coming on. We
Yeah.
need to do this again. I do want to do one. I want to say maybe springtime or summertime for food plots
Okay.
because I don't know anything about that, and I really do want to start saving money in the long run because $40 for 2 bags of feed, I cannot keep doing that.
Oh, I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've
Nope.
gotten to the point I'm just gonna put a food block out every week, and that's it
Yeah,
because they're getting too expensive.
I
But
know it.
let's plan for that, and
Okay.
congratulations on an amazing season.
I appreciate.
130-inch 6 point, dude. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But awesome, man. Well, I guess until next time, dude.
All right, sounds good. Take it easy, man.